must come at, I think, an opportune time for the Republic Kenya because we just sworn in a new president. One of the challenges that we do have is in the education sector, much to the criticism of the CBC education system in Kenya. One of the things that must worry the new government is how they are going to deal with a curriculum which is unique or obscure to many of the learners themselves, the teachers and the parents. One of the complaints is that they feel that this curriculum is more for the parents than the children. The parents seem to be doing more of the homework than the children. As a person that pioneered the reforms in the education system close to 20 years ago, I can tell you that we've had many task forces, we've had many commissions to review education, and there's absolutely no need to review or to bring a task force again in the education sector. Reports are either rotting or gathering dust in many of those offices. What we need now is to get experts like myself to interrogate those reports and come out with expert opinion on what is to be done next. As for my suggestion, I can tell you where we're heading in terms of learning. Number one, the Kenyan system and the new government ought to embrace the concept of Ministry of Learning away from Ministry of Education. In the Ministry of Learning, one of the tenets, one of the requirements is that you must have a diagnostic wing. That diagnostic wing must have a process to find out a 4, 5, 6-year-old child in advance of 20, 30 years. Can the minister be sure that this is going to be the career of that child? In other words, if I'm going to the Minister of Learning in Kenya, I should look in the eyes of parents and tell them, you know what? You are giving me a 5, 6-year-old child. I know your child in the future, in 20, 30 years from now, will most likely be a lawyer, will most likely be an engineer, will most likely be a musician, will most likely be a footballer. So my learning processes and the package going with this will be towards building, towards maximizing opportunities so that your child becomes just that. Okay? Now, unless that is possible in Kenya today, the education sector will go in full circle. We shall do reviews, we shall have task forces, we end up with the same thing. Number two, we will have to redefine in the Ministry of Learning who the learner is. A learner is an embodiment of a person with age and with potentials to do things more uniquely than another one. For example, I would find a 12-year-old using a special assessment known as human anthropobiometrics. And I discovered that during prolonged labor, there was a skewed ganglion that created a special taste bud in his tongue. That this young person is capable of being a wine taster, a coffee taster. He's so unique that big markets are looking for this child. How will that child learn in the normal syllabus and curriculum concept? You can't just do that. And that's why diagnosis is very important. Finally, in the Ministry of Learning, we shall be working with the formal learning system, the academics, to provide, of course, peer and social interaction with the young people. But this is something that in the future needs to be done away with slowly by slowly. It is for this reason that I'm urging our fresh president, His Excellency Dr. William Ruto, to embrace the new concepts of learning and create a Ministry of Learning with a council for diagnosis of the learners, and the learners being the children, that is somebody below 12 years, the teenagers, that is up to 19 years, and the youth up to 30 or 35 years, and the adults beyond the 30 or 35 years of age. For the adults, we'll be able to evaluate them and see them what would they have been if they were 6 years old? Vis-a-vis, what are they doing today with their lives? Have they made empires? Have they made companies? Are they working? What is their experiential value? What is their achievement value over the period of time in the form of credits before they join any form of learning? So that we don't see the current scenario that an adult wishes to get a degree and is forced to go sit in class with children the same age of his own children, and then is expected to understand the difficult concepts of mathematics and expected to write exams and succeed. It is a disaster. That's not in the Ministry of Learning. That can only happen in the Ministry of Education. So I urge my government to take the opportunity to take the leading role in terms of doing what is new, which is futuristic in Africa. And for that reason, the learning concept in the Ministry of Learning, remember, it must have a learning system which is simple, so simple that a grandmother in Tana River who is not very educated has the hang of it. That it must be affordable, knowing that most people live below $1 a day in most African countries. And above all, it must be futuristic. So futuristic that the Minister for Learning is able to tell the parents that we shall, in the cohort that we are having as grade 1, we have the chance of getting medical doctors of this number, because he knows individually who they will be 20, 30 years from now. That, I think, is essential for a country like Kenya, for a continent like Africa. Thank you.